In this lesson, we'll dive into our reading and writing settings and see what that can do for us. In our last lesson, we started to dive into our reading settings and saw how we could use it to change our home page to display static content rather than a feed of our most recent posts. So let's take a look at our other settings and see what they can do for us. I'm going to come up here to our site title and go down to our dashboard, and at the very bottom we can get back to our settings. In our last lesson, we went into our reading settings, and our general settings we've already seen, so I'm not going to spend any time going over this, but that was where we did things like change our site title, our tagline, and our date and time format. Our writing settings, we have a couple of interesting different options. We can change our formatting. If we want to set our default post category to something different, you might find that really handy. So you can see it's uncategorized by default, but if you find yourself writing about something really often, you can save yourself a step here and change that. Maybe if I was often writing about North America and I wanted to set that to my default, I could change that here. So I'm going to leave that as uncategorized. You can change the post format as well. So if you're often posting quotes or something like that, you can change your format to a quote. And what I want to take a look at is these bottom two options here. I think it's really interesting. We have this bookmarklet we can install. A bookmarklet is basically a little app or application that runs in your browser. So if you're often finding things around the web that you want to blog about, this can save you a huge amount of steps here. You can actually clip text, images, or videos from a web page and then blog about it directly in that browser extension or that browser application. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in doing, I highly recommend grabbing this and installing it in your browser. And the second option here, posting by email, is also really cool. So maybe you're away from your computer, you're on vacation, and you still want to post, but the easiest thing you have access to is your email. You can actually write it directly in your email client in Gmail or Yahoo or whatever you use and send it to an email and it'll post it for you. So that's really cool as well. Down here we can edit our content types and our portfolio projects, but we aren't going to dive into that because it's outside of the scope of our course. So I don't think I need to save this. I don't think we changed anything here. So I want to move on and see what other reading options we have. We saw the ability to change our front page, but we can also change the amount of posts that are displaying on our post page. So we changed that to our recent adventures page. And if we wanted to increase this to show 10 posts on each page, or if we wanted to decrease this from 10 to 15, we could come in here and do that manually, which is really, really cool. The other thing I want to look at is on our post page, if you don't want it to show the full article, you can change this from full text to summary. And if you want your site to be private, this is where you would come to do it. And you can allow search engines to not index your site, which I don't recommend because it'll make it a lot harder for people to find your content. Or you can even set it to private and choose what users or people can view your blog. So maybe if you're just blogging about a study abroad trip and you only want to share it with a couple of friends and not with the world, then you could do that here, which I'm going to leave it at this first option. And what I've done here in this related post section is I have chosen to use a large and visually striking layout. So I'll uncheck this so you can see the default. At the bottom of your post, it's going to suggest related things for people who come to your blog to read. And you have the option to just have links, or you can show the related header, which I recommend just to kind of tell people what is going on down at the bottom of the page. And I also like to choose this last option for a large and visually striking layout. That way it'll pull images from your blog post and it'll make it more interesting and more intriguing for people to read other articles, because people like to see images. It's just kind of in our nature liking visual things. And down here, I don't really want to touch anything else. You can read through it and it's pretty self-explanatory, but I do want to point out, if people follow you, you have an ability to come in here and personalize this text. So if you want to make it much more personal and very customized to your blog, I recommend to do that. It'll make people feel more special or more engaged in your blog. So I'm going to go ahead and save these changes. And now that we've gone through our general writing and reading sections, I want to come in and our next lesson talk about the different discussion settings we can change.